Hey guys, I want to welcome you all to this masterclass about why 2025 may be the greatest year ever for speakers. So I want to just hop right into it because I don't want to take up much of your holiday. I know this is for Black Friday, so I want to make sure that we can get to it and let you get back to your families. So let's go ahead and start here, right? How do you jumpstart your 2025 speaking goals? So let's take 10 seconds really quickly and let's do a quick exercise. Imagine introducing yourself to 1,200 decision makers over the next 12 months in 2025. How many more speaking invitations do you think you would secure if you were taking those proactive steps? 1,200 introductions in a year may sound like a lot, but let's break it down. That's really just 100 people per month or 5 introductions per business day. Think about it. What if I gave you a system that ensures that 15 minutes per day is all that it will take for you to introduce yourself to 5 decision makers, opening doors to more speaking opportunities, more podcast opportunities, more press opportunities in 2025? Only 15 minutes a day. Is that something reasonable you can imagine yourself doing? Even if you missed the day, you got sick, you can easily catch up. That's still only about 25 people a week, maybe an hour or so worth of work. This simple task can have a huge effect on your life and business in 2025. When you accept the challenge today, this is my public commitment that I'll make to you. If you do reach out to 1,200 decision makers over the next 12 months, which is basically 5 a day, 100 a month, using the system that I'm going to show you today, I'm even willing to give you the systems, give you the software, give you the contact information, provide you the support you need, and the accountability of other speakers. And if after all of that, you're still not invited to share your message on a podcast, association, or conference, or even a media outlet in the next 12 months, I will give you a full refund plus $1,000 cash. No questions asked. That's my commitment to you. Is that fair? I think it's time for the speaking industry to put up or shut up. No more empty promises from coaches that charge you a lot of money that can't get you results. We're going to be different for you. That's how much I believe in my systems and the formulas that me and my team have come up with. And we're going to share those with you today. So, do you accept the challenge? Can you commit to reaching out to at least 5 people per day to get booked more in 2025? Does your business deserve that? Are you worthy of being introduced to 5 people every day? Do you feel like that's something that your business deserves and is entitled to in the future? It's basic work. Yes or no? What do you have to lose? I offered you a very basic guarantee, very simple to understand. If you do it and it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back plus $1,000. If you do it and it does work, you will have reached your 2025 goals and you'll be happy. So if your answer was no to this question, please stop watching the video right now and enjoy the rest of your day with your family. Enjoy Black Friday this weekend, Cyber Monday. Enjoy all of that. You don't even need to watch the rest of this video. But for those of you who are still here, if you accept the challenge and you're still watching this video, let's get started. Again, I believe that 2025 just might be the best year in history to be a speaker, coach, or thought leader. What do you think? Here's a quick pop quiz. Is the speaking industry growing or dying? It's actually growing. In 2019, $1.9 billion was spent on paying speakers. In 2025, that's projected to be $2.3 billion, a $300 million increase. And it's growing at about 4% per year. But some speakers are also online coaches and you have courses. What do you think about that industry? After the pandemic, the online education industry blew up. A lot of people say now it's dying, but actually the stats say different. Online education in 2023 accounted for almost $50 billion in revenue, and it's projected to 5x by 2032, growing at a 23% cumulative average growth rate every year for the next 8 years. Now, what's bigger than speaking, coaching, online education, e-learning? You think that's growing or dying? That's even bigger. With the emergence of ChatGPT and other AI, we're going to see more educational opportunities than ever before. What we've learned is that there's some basic things that the future of public speaking will have to accept or it will no longer exist. But the opportunity is large. Great, great, great forecast for the future. So you should be proud. You should be excited about getting your part of these blue lines. I'm going to help you to do that. So here's the bad news. Being just a speaker won't be good enough going forward. The coaches are coming and becoming speakers, but a lot of speakers aren't becoming coaches. So speakers will have to adjust to the new landscape with more people becoming speakers and taking their stages that normally were reserved for them as the thought leaders, right? Coaches are now buying, entrepreneurs are now buying the stages that you used to get paid to appear on, meaning that they're willing to pay through sponsorship to get those gigs that you normally would be paid to speak at. So you must adjust to that and be able to offer more than just your voice. You have to adjust your intellectual property. The second thing is only doing live and in-person stages won't be enough. With the advent of Zoom and other types of virtual events and hotel costs going up higher than ever for live events, the true thought leaders will always be on every platform available to share their message, whether that's live, in person, in writing, whatever, over the radio. They're going to find a way to get their message out. They always have in the past, and they will continue to do so in the future, just with a lot more competition from those that are becoming speakers. The other thing is that AI will replace those who don't adapt, but empower those that do. Now that you can use ChatGPT to find speaking gigs, to write the pitches for you, to personalize your selection of what events you should speak at, this is the greatest time ever to be a speaker. The first thing that I said, which was negative, being just a speaker won't be good enough going forward. That means you get a chance to expand your revenue opportunities. Only doing live events on stage won't be enough. That means you get to get on more virtual stages, more podcasts, more small groups, things of that sort with your coaching programs. And then now you have AI in order to help you out, to make sure that you're always on point with what you're talking about and being able to do more in-depth research than ever before. This is an exciting time. So here's my big promise to you. I'm going to give you a proven formula today that's going to help you to build your authority and your visibility. It's going to also help you to get consistent speaking gigs without needing to be famous or anything like that. And finally, it's going to turn speaking into a profitable and scalable business for you if that's what your goal is. So this is kind of what the speaking business can feel like sometimes, kind of like a maze. You don't have a lot of control. Sometimes you're going this way, you go that way, you come back, you're still not at your goal, things of that sort. We spend a lot of time trying to figure our way through the speaking business. I've worked with over 4,500 speakers over the last 6 years. So I've talked to them all and they all say the same thing. But sometimes we got to think outside of the box, right? We can keep going through the maze and being frustrated, or we can just avoid the maze altogether, right? Sometimes you got to think about outside the box, but sometimes it's better to just change the rules. Today, what I'm going to show you is a game changer. It changes the rules for public speaking going forward. Now, before we get into that, let's talk about your goals. Since we're talking about 2025, let's talk a little bit about your goals. How many gigs do you want in 2025? How much money will you make from those gigs? Do you have a proven plan to achieve that goal? And how much are you willing to bet on yourself regarding achieving that goal? Now, let me tell you why that's probably the most important question. Because if you don't have confidence in your plan, you have to find a way to put together a plan that you can have 100% confidence in. At minimum, 90% certainty that your plan, if executed, will help you to get to your goals. You don't want to leave this to chance and hope that opportunities come your way. You need a plan that guarantees that you will have the opportunities if you do the work necessary to secure them. So, why do you think most speakers struggle to reach their goals? Now that we put yours out there, why do you think most speakers struggle to reach their goals? I can tell you it's not a lack of discipline. It's definitely not procrastination. Some speakers are the smartest, hardest working people that I've ever met. It's not a lack of confidence. You know, speakers are confident. You got to be confident to get on stage, right? It's not shiny object syndrome. You're not going from one thing to another. You know, it's not a lack of intelligence, as I mentioned. It's not bad coaching. A lot of the speaker coaches are great, right? It's a lack of leverage. So success in any business favors those with the leverage. There's basically 4 types of leverage. There's capital, which means money to invest to make things easier. You can use that to leverage other people's experience or IP, like coaching or whatever. You could, pay for a coach, pay for a system. There's cooperation, working with others to make things easier. Have employees, leveraging other people's time. You can, work with someone else and partner with them in order for them to do some of the work with you. The third type of leverage is code. You can use technology, AI, software, things to make things easier, leverage other people's systems, right? And then the fourth type of leverage, you can leverage content. You can use other people's networks to make life easier. Post something on YouTube and it's seen by millions of people. That's called content and leveraging other people's relationships and networks. So here's what you're going to learn today. How the best speakers use leverage to get booked. I'm also going to teach you the 4 mindset growth hacks that are necessary in order to be successful in the speaking business, if you want to be in the top 50%, right? The third thing I'm going to show you is what we call the space formula, right? And the fourth thing will be the speaker flywheel and why it's important. So let's get started. Buckle up. This is going to be a fun day, guys. So first off, why should you listen to me? Well, since 2018, I've interviewed over 4,500 speakers, and I've personally worked as clients. They were my clients with over 1,000 speakers, booking them for more than 10,000 meetings with event planners, podcast hosts, and press relationships. This is what some of the big people in the industry have to say about me. Les Brown says, Ron is a visionary. Speaker Hub connects speakers to opportunities and helps them to be voices of peace, harmony, and love. This platform helps speakers realize their calling and leaves a legacy for the next generation. Christine Miles, Ron's ability to guide conversations and help speakers refine their approach to connecting with their audience is truly a gift. Kim Coles from television, I'm excited about the speakers that you're going to serve and help create ways for them to get their messages out even more. Israel David Duran, Ron created a platform that makes public speaking accessible and actionable for anyone, helping speakers not only refine their craft, but also step into their calling with confidence. And finally, Amana J. I have massive respect for Ron for continuing to play the game and make an impact he's making. His commitment to helping speakers is truly inspiring. So why do so many people say these things? Because they've seen my path, right? Some of them remember when I was a growth hacker, learning to get sales meetings and things of that sort. Some of them remember they've worked with me since I bought PitchDB in 2018. They remember me having the Speakers Bureau, the PR agency that we purchased, and then Speaker Hub recently this summer. So here's what I've learned from owning these businesses. With 5 contacts, I learned that you can book beginning and experienced speakers just by contacting the event planners directly. That was a huge thing for me. With PitchDB, I learned that being a guest on podcasts can sometimes generate more revenue than most speakers make on stage doing live events. With PR Pitches, I learned that having a column in a national publication validates thought leaders and can sometimes 2x your speaking fee just by having a column in a reputable publication. And with Speaker Hub, I learned a huge lesson. I learned that 95% of speakers who aren't famous, for them, inbound leads are not enough to get them to their goals. You got to remember, I've always been in the outbound world, but over at Speaker Hub, I learned really quickly, whoa, most speakers are not doing outbound. They're relying on inbound. That was a huge lesson for me to learn over the last 6 months. These experiences revealed the pattern and habits and some of the belief systems that any speaker can follow. So here's some of the mindset growth hacks I learned from working with some of the top. The first thing I learned was that they proactively pitch the stages that they want. They're not waiting around to be discovered, right? Les Brown isn't waiting around to be discovered. He's, like he says, he's hungry, right? So you got to be willing to take control of your speaking career, right? You got to be willing to use one stage to get you on bigger stages, right? So I was talking with a client this week in our client meetings that we have daily, and she said, hey, I was on a podcast and the lady asked me to come speak. She said, I want you to come to my conference in March. She learned to use one stage to get a bigger stage, right? That's the second growth hack. The third growth hack was learn to give profitable free speeches. There's only 3 ways to get paid for a speaking gig. You can get paid to show up, you can sell from the stage, and you can get paid after you leave, right? The best speakers may not always get paid to show up, but they always get paid during and after the event. Those are 2 things you can control, right? So you have to learn to give profitable free speeches. Remember earlier I mentioned that a lot of the marketers are coming and taking stages away from the professional speaker who is looking to get paid. The marketer is willing to buy that stage spot to push you out of the business. So there is a lot of price, price contraction that's happening right now in the speaking business for those who aren't famous. So growth hack number 3 is a game changer. Growth hack number 4 was the best speakers learn to invest in the right people, tools, and data sets, right? These elite speakers are using all 4 forms of leverage to win. They're using capital, they're using cooperation, they're using software, and they're using content to make sure that they keep their spot secure in the minds of those who want to book them. Now, here's what I've learned. Over time, I discovered that most bookings that happened with the speakers that were getting booked all the time, they were doing the same exact things as the least booked speakers, right? It wasn't as if both groups were doing something tremendously different. They were doing the same exact thing. But the people who were getting booked the most were doing those actions with more frequency, consistency, and intention. Let me explain. The speaker that get booked every once in a while, it's kind of random. They don't have any control over it. If we ask them, how many speaking gigs do you have on the calendar for the next 60 days? They would say, 1, 2. They don't have any control over what they're doing. So it's kind of scattered, right? But what I learned is that there's another group of speakers that are kind of the above average speakers, and their situation is linear. If I ask them what do they have on the books for the next 60 days, they could tell me. I have 4 podcasts coming up. I did 3 last week. I got 2 association gigs. I got a conference that's coming up in January, and I'm supposed to do something with the news next weekend, or I'm going to be writing an article for these 2 magazines. They know exactly what's coming on. They have it well organized, and they're not on these opportunities by chance. Where the person who's scattered, they have no control. They're relying only on referrals and hoping someone discovers them and invites them to come be on their platform. This person has a more streamlined goal, and they're working with intention. But there was a different speaker. There was a third category of frequently booked speakers, and they were using what I would call a flywheel. Now, let me tell you what a flywheel is, because I know you're probably thinking, what's a flywheel? I've heard of fly fishing. I know what a fly is. I know what a wheel is, but I may not have ever heard of a flywheel. Well, here it is. This is what a flywheel is. A flywheel is like a big wheel that takes some time to start turning, but once it gets going, it keeps moving faster and faster and faster. If you've ever seen a whale where you pump the water from the whale and you see this wheel spinning that's making the water come out, and you pump and the wheel spins faster and faster. And before you know it, water starts pouring out of the whale. That's a flywheel system in that whale. So in business, the flywheel means doing small, smart actions every day that add up over time to bring more and more success to your business. This flywheel, when implemented, produces predictable results with leverage for those speakers, right? That's really important. Leverage is really important, right? And that's what you get from having a flywheel. But the flywheel was just one ingredient of a larger formula that I really didn't even know until I had to pay a little bit more attention. You see the flywheel working, but you're like, but there has to be more than this because it looks like they're just doing the same things that the average speaker's doing. Why is this person 10xing this other person? Guess what? I figured it out. I start calling this 3-part system the speaker launch formula. The speaker launch formula is basically this. It's S times P plus A equals CE. S times P plus A equals CE. I'll give you a couple hints on what these are. CE stands for consistent engagements. But what is the S, the P, and the A? I'm glad you asked. The S stands for strategy. I'm going to show you in the next few slides how you can apply a strategy that turns small gigs into big gigs, right? We call it the speaker flywheel, right? So again, your goals determine your strategy. Earlier, you wrote down your goals. Depending on what your goals are, that should determine how hard you go at your strategy and what type of strategy you implement. What I'm about to show you is a flexible strategy that any speaker can use in order to get booked more. So there's no such thing as bad goals, just poor strategies. If I was trying to build this house, I would have to take a different strategy than building this office building. Again, neither one of them are a bad goal. I would love to live in a house like that. I would love to have an office building like that. But the strategy in which how you would construct them are totally different, right? So this strategy applies leverage to your speaking business immediately and forever. It's called the speaker flywheel. Let me break it down for you. The first part of the speaker flywheel is inbound. This is where hosts and event planners look for you online and they find you and they reach out to you. You did nothing but set up your pages and make sure that you were findable when they search for you in Google or in Speaker Hub or Speaker Match or some speaker platform like that, right? That's called inbound. Maybe they found you on LinkedIn or something like that. Those are inbound leads. The second part of the speaker flywheel was outreach. And outreach is where you're intentionally pitching the opportunities that you wanted to be on. This was a big difference between that elite speaker who was always getting booked and the average and the not so booked speakers. They were kind of only relying on inbound, but the elite speaker had added outbound to their system, which made it look like, oh, well, no, I'm not really doing much. I'm kind of, I get referrals just like you. But in reality, they were doing some outreach on their own that over time added up. Even though they weren't doing a lot of it, they were doing enough to build momentum. Now, once you have your inbound and your outbound set up, we want to show you how to use podcasts to turn those into association gigs and turn association gigs into conferences and turn conferences into media writing credentials. Now, this is important because it works for speakers of all ages, right? If we were to think about podcasts, if I was just starting out, I would go on as many podcasts as possible. And then I would take those podcast episodes and then I would start reaching out to associations with links to my podcast episodes so that they can start hearing me and say, oh man, I really like what he talks about. I would love them to have him come in to talk to our group, right? And then I would take that association gig and the film or the speaker reel that I recorded while I was there, and I would send that over to a conference. And I would just keep doing things like that to build momentum, whether I was new, in the middle, experienced, or an expert speaker. Why? Because there will always be a bigger stage, but there will always be competition for that bigger stage. So that's what we talk about with the speaker flywheel. This year, podcast during the presidential election, 5 podcasts were thanked more than anybody else in the thank you speech for getting the president-elect elected. Joe Rogan Theo Von, the Nelk Boys, and two other that I can't remember were credited with impacting the election. Again, the world used to be controlled by megaphones. Now it's controlled by microphones. There's no way that you can get in front of 10, 20 million people with your voice inside of a stadium if you only stick to large events. Podcasting is the way to get your voice heard by more people around the world using leverage. Associations. Associations are great gigs to have. Why? Because in the crowd are usually your ideal clients. So you may go and do a free speaking gig at a small association with 30 to 50 people in the crowd, and you may walk out with 5 to 6 clients. That's called giving a profitable free speech. That's why associations are great. And they also help you to work on your new messaging. And then there's conferences. The conferences are where you get all the cool photos, right? You get all the notoriety and things of that sort. But you're usually able to speak at the conference because you nailed the first two. You had some experience speaking at smaller groups beforehand. And then that turns into media outlets. Imagine someone introduces me as Ron Story, the head of product at Speaker Hub. That's cool, right? But if I was Ron Story, the head of product at Speaker Hub and the editor of Speakers Magazine, whoa, wait, you got a column in Speakers Magazine? That would set me apart. People would pay a little bit more attention to me because I was in Forbes or Fortune or Parents Magazine or CNET, Business Insider. All of a sudden, I can start pushing my price up because I have writing credentials. Media outlets still create the thought leader, right? So this is what we call the speaker flywheel. It is the essential strategy for speakers. It's the one that all the top speakers are using. If you show me any speaker, I will show you how they're using the flywheel. Here's someone that recently got results from using our flywheel. This is Dr. Karen Pruden, right? And she sent me this message during her monthly report for November before she went on Thanksgiving break. And she says, hey, so far I sent 174 pitches, 35 were sent to podcast. I got booked on 6 and I've already recorded 3. I sent 11 to associations and I got booked for 1. I sent 11 to media outlets. I sent 22 to conferences, and I'm in talks with 9 other opportunities, right? So she's using the flywheel and you can see the results. This is her first month using Speaker Hub. So it's clear now that implementing the system of leverage is the only difference between the best and the rest, right? So let me give you some proof so that you just don't have to rely on Dr. Karen. Think of your top 5 speakers, dead or alive. Have you heard all of them speak live and in person? If not, you got caught up in their flywheel. Most of us have never heard our top 5 speakers, but we know who they are. And they're our favorite speakers because we heard them on a podcast. We saw a recording of them on YouTube. We read an article about them, or maybe we bought a book, or maybe we bought a course from them. You notice how they're just not staying on the live stage. They're expanding their business, and that's why they're great. So depending on the stage you are in your career, you may need to focus on different areas. The flywheel is adjustable to your goals. What we found in working with those 1,000 speakers is that there are 3 different levels of speakers. There are the emerging speakers, there are the experienced speakers, and then there's the expert speakers. And we usually can categorize them by the level of experience in years and in how comfortable they are asking for their speaking fee. So those speakers that are under 3 years in the business, they usually aren't that comfortable asking for $15,000, right? So we call those emerging speakers. Those who are experienced have been around a lot. They're pretty comfortable with their $4,000 to $8,000 range. And they're usually looking at different goals than what the emerging. And then the experts, of course, they're the experts. We know that they're doing things different than all 3. But the flywheel should work for each person. So if I was an emerging speaker, I would be focusing on podcasts and associations. That's really important because I need to work on my messaging and also perfect my stagecraft in front of smaller crowds so that I don't embarrass myself at my first conference. But if I'm an experienced speaker, I need to be getting on more conferences more frequently. I don't understand how I can be a professional speaker if I never practice, right? So I know the average speaker at Speaker Up, we have a bunch of data, and we know that the average speaker worldwide does about 5 gigs a year. Imagine if LeBron James only practiced basketball 5 times a year, right? So for the experienced speaker, it's really important that you keep your gears oiled by going on podcasts and doing some of the smaller gigs while you're waiting on those conferences to come through for you. So you got to keep that flywheel moving so that you can build your notoriety and keep the momentum going as you try to transition into an elite speaker. We think that our expert speakers should be adding media credentials ASAP. Definitely should have written a book so that they could establish their thought leadership, but they should have turned that book into writing credentials for an industry magazine that they respect. They should also be getting on podcasts, doing associations, doing conferences, but they're going to be doing it at a higher level. So where the emerging speaker may be on 1 podcast a week, the experienced speaker may be on 5 a week, right? Tony Robbins did 250 podcast interviews earlier this year within 60 days of his book launch in February, right? He did 250 podcast interviews within 60 days of his book launch. That's what the elite speakers are doing. So we covered the strategy part. Let's get into the next part, which is process, right? So here's what we want to do. You need a repeatable process. Let me say it again. You need a repeatable process. It is hard to do something if you're just doing random things every day. There should be a part of your business where you know every day I need to wake up and knock this out, and then I can do the other stuff. For myself, I've created a process to where I get up at about 7 a.m. I don't let anyone schedule meetings on my books until 1 p.m. I have my team meetings before that, but it's a regular, routine, day-to-day process that I need to make Speaker Hub run. So what processes do you have that you know you will do every day in your business? If you don't have one, we're going to give you a way to do that. So again, your goals determine your strategy, but your goals also determine your process. Everything that we do at Speaker Hub is motivated by our internal desire to reach our goals. Without the goals, we're just randomly running around in circles. We need a point that we're running towards. That's why we keep bringing this up for you. So as we start thinking about processes, there are 2 types, and you need to know the difference between these 2 types. The first type is called a passive process. This means I will do nothing and I will expect a result that is outside of my control. That's passive. You don't do anything, but you expect something from it. That's a passive process, right? The second type of process is a proactive process. I will do something and I'll expect a result that's within my control. You notice the difference. One is I will do nothing. The other one is I will do something. With passive, I'm expecting results that are outside of my control. With proactive, I'm expecting results that are within my control. Well, look, you got to know the difference. That's a major thing. Why? Because the results are determined by that, right? There are different activities. The results that come from passive are referrals and inbound inquiries. They're unpredictable. You have no control. If I asked you today, how many referrals do you have by the end of the day? You have no idea. If I said, how many people are going to call you to be on a podcast today? You have no idea because it's passive. But on the proactive side, I could ask you, how many emails did you send today to be on podcast? How many applications did you complete today about speaking at conferences? How many people did you introduce yourself to? Right? You remember that 5 commitment that you made? That's why you're here. Those are going to be 5 proactive outreaches, 5 proactive introductions, right? So, but we believe that proactive includes outbound emails, content creation, phone calls. Basically, it allows you to control your pipeline and what's coming in. Eventually, you'll find your own formula, right? So the best speakers succeed by focusing on actions that they can control, like outreach and content creation, right? So here's one of the funny things that I learned. You know, this is a great prayer because it applies to the topic that we're talking about. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which are the passive activities. You can't control how many referrals you get or how many people hit you up as to call you to come speak at their thing without you doing anything, right? And then the second part is I need the courage to change the things that I can. It takes a lot of courage to get up and do outbound every day, right? But if you just do a little bit, 5, 10 outreaches a day, you'll be okay, right? And you have to have the wisdom to know the difference. The best speakers know the difference between passive things that they can't control, and they have the courage to proactively do the things that they can, right? So again, can you control the number of invites you receive today? No, you can't. Can you control the daily actions you take to get invited? Yes, you can, right? So here's what you need to do. Here's the process for an emerging speaker. Remember, I mentioned that your strategy has to adjust based on where you are. If you're listening to this and you see yourself as an emerging speaker with under 3 years of experience and you charge less than $3,000 for a speaking fee, this is what the process you should follow to get booked more. We call it the 15-minute success formula, right? Basically, they should be reaching out to 2 podcasts a day and 3 associations. By the end of the year, they should have appeared on 48 podcasts and did 12 association gigs, right? This is what the emerging speaker needs to be doing. This is for an emerging speaker that's part-time, meaning you still have a full-time job, so you're not relying on this as your primary source of revenue. You're using this as supplementary as you build your skills, right? So this is for the part-time emerging speaker. But what about the experienced speaker? What should they be doing? The process that the experienced speaker should be following should be doing the same thing with podcasts and associations, but again, they're going to be adding conferences. So they should be reaching out to 2 podcasts a day, 3 associations, and 5 conferences. This is for the part-time experienced speaker that's used to being on the conference stage. They're just not trying to leave their job in order to do it full-time. At the end of the year, they should be on 48 podcasts, 12 associations, meaning a monthly association gig, and maybe have done a quarterly conference. This would put them in the top 15% of speakers worldwide because they would have done 16 gigs and 48 podcasts. Most of the people on this call today have never done 48 podcasts in a year or 12 live speaking gigs, not to mention 4 conferences altogether. So this is for part-time experienced speakers. But then we have our expert speakers. They're going to add media outlets, but they're doing this as a full-time job. So here's what their day should look like. They should be reaching out to 4 podcasts, 6 associations, 8 conferences, and 2 media publications every single day. By the end of the year, they should have been on about 100 podcasts, 24 association gigs, meaning they're speaking at 2 associations a month minimum. They should be doing 2 conferences every quarter and getting paid from 4 publications by the end of the year. Now, can they do more than this? Yes, but this is the bare minimum. What we're showing you here is the bare minimum for where you consider to be yourself, right? So if you're saying, well, no, I'm an expert, but you're doing less than 98 podcasts, you're doing less than 32 live speaking gigs, and you're not writing for 4 publications, probably not an expert speaker just yet, right? You're probably a part-time speaker still that's making that transition, and that's okay. I can't make that judgment, but I can just look at the numbers, right? My job is to hold people accountable to the numbers. So these are the recipes and the plans and the processes that we're going to give you. You already have the strategy. Now you have a process, a recipe that you can follow with predictable outcomes, right? Every approach is different based on your topic and audience. A lot of people will ask me, well, how many I need to get this? And you got to find your unique formula. Let me tell you why that's important. If I were to ask you, how many sit-ups do I need to get a 6-pack? Imagine I walked into a gym and I asked the personal trainer that, right? He would look at me like I was crazy. He doesn't know the exact number of sit-ups I need to do, but it's probably different than everyone else that has ever been in that gym because everyone has to find their own unique formula based on body composition, work ethic, how much weight, BMI, all of this stuff, right? But that's no different than being a speaker. Your topic, your geography, how often you can speak, how flexible you are, determine how much work it's going to take. Your job is to find out how much that is for yourself. So The process that we give you is all wrapped up in something called Speaker Hub Pro. It is basically the complete system developed to help speakers to succeed. I'm going to take the next couple seconds and show you how Speaker Hub Pro works to help you to get this done in 15 minutes. Because I know a lot of you guys are wondering, wait a minute, I don't have time to go find 100 opportunities in the next 5 minutes. I need to find a way to leverage my time in order to get booked faster and on more stages. So what you're seeing here is what we call Speaker Hub Pro. Speaker Hub Pro is basically where you can use AI on your side, right? And this AI is going to help you to match with speaking gigs, podcasts, associations, and media outlets. So you can see here, I have my stuff in here, but I'm going to change my job description to I used to be a financial advisor, so I'm going to say I help clients to define a financial plan and to retire safely, right? So once I put that in and I put my website here, right, instantly AI is going to start matching me to the right speaking gigs. So let me make sure got all my stuff in here instead of someone else's. I hit save and watch what happens here. The AI right now is regenerating my speaker bio, and it's going to change from me being, working in public speaking to talking more about what I do on the financial advisory side. You see that? My clear mission is to empower individuals towards a secure financial future. It looked at my website, looked at my LinkedIn, and it looked at my history as a financial advisor, and it wrote this. I'm going to hit save and watch what happens. When I click on podcast, it instantly shows me financial advisory podcast. You notice I didn't have to search for anything. AI worked in the background to find the right podcast for me. So if I wanted to go on this radical personal finance podcast, I can look over here and I can see if they interview people, and I can also listen to it to see if I would be a good fit. All I do is add it to a list and click save. I click this orange pitch button, and what you're going to see is here in the next few minutes, actually the next few seconds, the AI is going to write a customized pitch for me and that podcast. So give it 5 more seconds and we're going to see it pop up on the screen. There it is. Hey, Josh, I'm Ron Story, a keynote speaker and a coach with a passion for empowering individuals towards financial security and independence. I'm incredibly inspired by the work you do with the Radical Personal Finance podcast. Come on, dude. Like, this is incredible. And this is what you could use if you accept the challenge, or when you accept the challenge that I laid out for you today about sending 5 opportunities. So all I would have to do is come down and click send email. I would put in a topic, podcast guest, and all I have to do is come down and I click send, and it will send that email directly to Joshua over at Radical Personal Finance. This doesn't just work for podcasts, guys. It also works for conferences. So look, I didn't search for anything. It automatically brought up the personal finance conferences that I should be going on or I should be pitching, right? So I can come in here and I can override it. Maybe I want to look for insurance conferences. I click there. It looks through our 45,000 conferences and it shows me all of the ones that are related to insurance. This is what you need. You need a process. You need something that you can hop in every day, use for 15 minutes, and then be off and on to the other things you need to do. Speaker Hub Pro gives you the power to do that. So basically, this is what we're seeing. You see, it wrote a quick conference pitch. You notice the other one was talking about the podcast. Look at this one here. Are you currently seeking dynamic speakers for your upcoming or future events? I'm Ron Story, a dedicated keynote speaker, and I'm eager to collaborate with the Insurance Summit. That is incredible. It's a great pitch, right? That's what you'll have the power to do here with Speaker Hub Pro. So we want to make sure that you have a process, not just for inbound, but also for outbound. On the regular Speaker Hub, there's the process for inbound, where you can go in here and you can have your speaker profile just like everyone else. So this allows people to find you when they type you into Google. You see Gerardo Lopez and everyone else. This is the system that you need. We already gave you the strategy. Now we're introducing you to the processes that you should follow on a regular basis. So, what do you all think so far? You have two parts of the three-part system. You have the S, you have the P, and you have the A. No, you don't have the A yet. We're going to give you the A right now. How about that? Let's give you an A because you've been on here. Let's go through and give you the A, right? Remember, everything that we show you today works for all three levels of speakers, no matter what level you're at, right? But what we found is that over the last 6 months of running Speaker Hub, we've given people the strategy. We taught the Speaker Flywheel. People have paid us money for Speaker Hub Pro. But even with the strategy, like the Flywheel, and a process to follow, like the software with Speaker Hub Pro, everything wasn't perfect. I noticed that many people still struggle to fully implement what we call the speaker launch formula. Why was this, right? What was the missing part of the formula? They had the strategy, they had the process and the software. They were using leverage, right? They were leveraging our experience with the strategy and leveraging code with the software, but they were missing the third part. They were missing accountability, right? So, again, your goals determine your strategy. Your goals also determine your process. But when it comes to accountability, your goals will be determined by your accountable actions, right? So every action that you do that you're held accountable to will push you further and further towards your goal. Why does accountability matter? Well, even the best tools and strategies won't work without consistency, right? They just don't work. That's where accountability comes in. The Speaker Launch community ensures that you stay on track, stay motivated, and keep moving forward. That's really important to us, right? But when does accountability start? Well, for most people, it starts after they're booked, when everybody's watching, right? The host holds you accountable to being on time, and the audience is going to hold you accountable for giving your best work on the stage. But who holds you accountable before you get booked? When nobody's watching. As speakers, we usually work alone. As entrepreneurs, we work alone. As coaches, we usually work alone unless we have a staff person. I'm fortunate enough to have a large team, but most speakers aren't, right? We usually hesitate to set goals because we let ourselves down in the past. So we don't want to go through that uneasiness of feeling like, man, I'm not going to hit my goal this month. So we just don't even set goals. We don't even tell people what our goals are because we don't want to be held accountable if our strategy isn't right to make sure that we're going to accomplish it. But guess what? You can't be held accountable to a process that's not repeatable. So I forgive you for all of the missing of your goals in the past. You didn't have a repeatable process, right? You can't be held accountable for a process that's not repeatable. That's something you need to think about. So if you want a repeatable process, we've given you the strategy. We've given you the process. Now we're offering you the accountability. So my question is, who currently holds you accountable for your speaking career? Right? Well, there's only two types of people who can truly hold you accountable to anything. Someone that's been where you're trying to go, meaning they already know what it takes. They already know how hard it is. They already know the rewards of getting to the goal or whatever you're trying to get to. And the second person is someone who's going with you to the destination. They have a vested interest in doing their part and you doing your part. They understand that their role is important also, just like your role, right? Their commitment will mirror yours. These are your teammates, right? It may be a spouse. It may be a family member, maybe your kids. These people can sometimes hold us accountable along the way, even though they've never done what we're trying to do, right? So those are the only two people that we believe that can hold you accountable. But here's the cool thing. When you have a community holding you accountable, you show up. Why? Because they're your peers, right? You take action and you see results faster than ever because you have both people holding you accountable. You have us as those who've been where you're trying to go. But you also have other peers in the room who've been where you're trying to go. And then some of the people on my team have never been speakers, but they have a vested interest in you accomplishing your goals. So they can help you to design your site or make sure your profile is the way it should be in order to get you the results faster than ever. That's why accountability is effective, right? So this is the speaker launch formula, guys. It's the strategy times the process plus accountability. That's what leads to consistent engagements. When you have all three elements working together, your results don't just add up, they multiply, right? Your results multiply when you have them all together. This is really important because if you're missing just one element, the results are no longer predictable. If you don't have a system, you're doing random things and hoping for results. If you don't have a process, you're invisible to event planners because you're not consistently in front of them. And without accountability, you lose focus and all of the momentum that you've been building with your system. So my biggest question and the last one is, would you like to join those who we've helped to get booked in the past using the speaker launch formula? We're going to give you the strategy. We're going to give you the process. We're going to hold you accountable. Here's some of our results. This is from maybe a month ago. Sayron joined us in August, and she's already getting booked. She has a February 2025 speaking gig already booked, right? I think in her first month, she went on 25 podcasts or so, right? Here's another one. This is someone that we got booked in October. This is another gig that was being planned for 2025, but you can see they had a meeting back in June. We booked interviews on podcasts, small groups, corporate consulting, conferences over the last 6 years. We booked a lot of people, right? Someone got their first paid gig and they were super duper exciting, right? This is a private text message that was sent to me, and this person had kind of given up and they had stopped doing the process, right? But I mentioned to him about call reluctance and you got to have the right mindset. And he said it made a big difference in his messaging. And exactly, that was one of the problems, right? So we worked on these different things and it was great, right? We mentioned getting you in media. This is one of our writers that's in Forbes. This is my partner in the PR business. And this is one of our clients that is in First Women magazine. This is in Business Insider. These are just a few of our results. I mean, I can go on and on. I got hundreds or maybe thousands. I should have at least 10,000 of these because we track it all. But who does the speaker launch formula work for? It works for entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, trainers, healthcare professionals, corporate executives, marketing professionals, sales professionals, bloggers. You don't have to be a full-time speaker to benefit from being on more stages and building your brand with the speaker launch formula, right? Because a lot of the people that were only speakers, you notice all of these people are now joining Speaker Hub and they're coming after those stages. They're trying to get on more podcasts. They're trying to do more small groups to get consulting clients. They're trying to get on those conference stages. So if you're a speaker and you're listening to this, you need to expand out. You got to expand your product offering. But we'll get to that more if you decide to go with us along the journey of speaker launch. So both you and I have two options. We can talk it or we can walk it, right? We can talk it. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Or we can walk it. I had to make that same decision. I could just make this thing and teach you all of this stuff. But if I'm not willing to help you implement it, if I'm not willing to answer your questions, if I'm not willing to hold you accountable and have you hold me accountable, then I'm a hypocrite. So I'm asking you, what are you going to do? You going to talk it or you going to walk it? Why? Because I invite you to walk with me as I help you to implement everything that I've learned about lead generation from my company, 5 Contacts. I'm also going to show you everything I learned about making money as a podcast guest from our company, PitchDB. I'm going to show you everything I learned about getting paid to write for major publications and how that process works with PR pitches. And I'm going to share with you everything I learned about getting speakers booked to share their message since we've owned Speaker Hub. And I learned a lot of stuff just from doing the work, running the agency, right? And working with over 1,000 clients and booking over 10,000 meetings. So If you want to listen to someone who sent 6 million emails, I don't know how many millions of emails. I know last year we sent like 500,000, right? So we sent millions of emails over the last 6 years. If you want to listen to me with my experience and have me give it to you, I welcome you to Speaker Launch, right? 2025 goals will be determined by the action you take in 2024. So my offer is to help you today, right? My offer to help you today is about, I don't know, as close to risk-free as legally possible, right? I can't make you any monetary guarantees, but I can hold you accountable to our processes, and you can hold me accountable to whether they work or not. So within all of the legal limits of a guarantee, I don't know if you remember the one I made to you earlier today. It was basically if you reached out to 1,200 decision makers to introduce yourself over the next 12 months, and if you're not invited to be on a podcast, an association, a conference, or a media outlet, I would give you a full refund plus $1,000, no questions asked. It's my put up or shut up guarantee. Why? Because I believe that much in our systems and the formula that I just showed you, the SPACE formula. S times P plus A equals consistent engagements, right? So, do you accept the challenge? Here's what you get. When you accept the challenge today, you're going to receive the systems. You're going to receive the contact information to all of the people that you want to reach out to. We have more than 4 million people in our directory. We're going to give you the support and the accountability you need. Let's get you booked more in 2025. But before I go any further, I have to tell you one thing. At the time of me recording this, there are exactly 62,495 people that are speakers in Speaker Hub. I took this screenshot earlier today before I turned on the camera, right? All of them are going to get the email about this opportunity. We will only let 30 people in Speaker Launch through the Black Friday deal that I'm about to show you. It will only be available to 30 people. We'll have another Black Friday deal that's available for everyone, but for Speaker Launch, it's only available for 30 people for the December cohort. Now, 4 of those are already taken earlier this week by Bart, Darren, Rory, and Robert. They heard me practice this presentation during one of our customer service meetings. So they said, man, can I buy this now? Do I have to wait to Black Friday? So they jumped in ahead of you guys, right? So guys, that leaves 26 slots available for our December cohort. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we want to help speakers at all levels with what we're about to show you. And depending on where you are, if you're an emerging speaker, you should be on a different game plan than those who are in the experienced speaker level and those that are in the expert level. So with the Speaker Launch formula that we're about to show you, we separated it out into 3 different pathways so that the emerging speaker can get what they need, the experienced speaker can get what they need. So what you're going to see below is a link, and those links take you to the pathway so that you can get the offer that is specifically for you for Black Friday. Because again, everybody's on a different path. We want to make sure that we offered you something that was specifically tailored for you so that the formula works to its fullest extent. So this has been a great masterclass here as I transition over to talking with you as you continue to accept the challenge of deciding to work with us to help you to implement the Speaker Launch formula. Again, if you want to get the strategy, the process, and accountability in order to get consistent engagements, go ahead and click below on the pathway that works for you so you can get your specific Speaker Launch formula with Black Friday. This goes away once all of the deals are sold. As I mentioned, Bart and those guys, they took away 4 of the slots already. There are only 30 slots total. So there's 26 left.